And in addition to our title support here tonight for Black History Month, PNC is also sponsoring, also partnering with the center to provide innovative and educational programming. So we hope that this month's events and the center's year-round offering gives everyone here tonight a reason to come back to the center. So thank you so much, really, for joining us tonight. And, we're very honored. I know I am certainly honored to be a part of this neighborhood, and I'm proud of this, to celebrate the diversity of this community. Not just this month, but for everyone and for years to come. So please enjoy the program.
Thank you so much. Now, this evening is not just a concert. There's an education value to it. And right now, we are going to put this music into context. And we have a fantastic moderator this evening. Dr. Myra Harris is with us tonight. And she is a professor of African Studies and co-founder of the Cultural Heritage Preservation and Digital Humanities Initiative at Morehouse College. The CHPDH utilizes public history and digital media to raise awareness of and help combat social justice. Dr. Myra Harris is a 2022 recipient of the President Joseph B. Biden Lifetime Achievement and Volunteer Service Awards for her more than 30 years as a higher education leader, scholar activist, public historian, and author. She's also co-founder of the Morehouse College Black Men's Research Institute and principal investigator for the Morehouse Movement, Memory, and Justice Initiative, both supported by grants from the Mellon Foundation. With support from the Rich and Points of Lights Foundation, as well as business mogul Kenneth Canal, Dr. Myrick is the convener of the Committee to Commemorate the Atlanta Student Movement, an initiative to raise awareness to the stories and lessons of student activism of the 1950s and 60s. Dr. Myra Harris's scholarship focuses on the African American quest for social justice, especially Black institution building and leadership with an emphasis on activism among Black women. Please help me welcome Dr. Myra Harris. Our first panelist tonight is Uzi Brown Jr. And he is the former chair of the Division of Creative and Performing Arts at Morehouse College, a former music chair at Clark Atlanta University, and editor of the Morehouse College Choral Music Series at GIA Publications in Chicago. He's also a former director of music and choirs at Cascade United Methodist Church, Ben Hill United Methodist Church, and Atlanta's historic Ebenezer Baptist Church. Brown is founder and director of Uzi Brown Society of Choraliers, I apologize. And a chorus dedicated to the performance of works by African American composers and arrangers. As past president of the National Association of Negro Musicians, Dr. Brown guided the organization to the completion of a $100,000 scholarship campaign, and he spearheaded the completion of the research and publication of the official documentary history of the National Association of Negro Musicians, founded in 1990 by the Center for Black Music Research. His diverse career as educator, performer, composer, arranger, and choral director has taken him to 27 countries. Brown holds a BA degree from Morehouse College, MM degree from Bowling Green State University, MM and DMA degrees from the University of Michigan, and as a veteran educator, composer, and performer, he has performed as the baritone soloist across the US and Europe. His works have been performed internationally and on 4 continents at important music centers in the US, including Alice Tully and Avery Fisher Halls, the National Cathedral, Severance Hall, and Carnegie Hall. He is a member of 7 fraternal organizations, including Phi Beta Kappa, Alpha Phi Alpha, Phi Mu Alpha Symphonia, I'm sorry, I've never been able to say that one, and Omicron Delta Kappa. Please help me welcome to the stage, Dr. Brown. tonight is Dr. Sharon J. Willis. She is a composer, conductor, lecturer, soprano, pianist, and author, and has served as music department chair at Clark Atlanta University and Morris Brown College before retiring. She currently serves as the Sanctuary Choir Director at Hoosier Memorial UMC and has recent honors including Distinguished Composer by the National Association of Negro Musicians, Incorporated Convention, the Kumba Award of Arts and Letters presented by the Delta Sigma Theta, the Atlanta Music Legends Award by the Atlanta African American Music Society, Spiritual Enlightenment Award, Trumpet Awards, Composer of the Year, National Women, and Samuel Johnson Distinguished Music Educators Award of 2017. Willis has received commissions from the American Guild of Organists Convention in Chicago and Seattle, Washington. Dr. Calvin Johnson, International Concert Organist and former Music Department Chair at M. Agnes Scott College. She has played with the Trey Clegg International Concert Organist and so much more. And she has also authored 7 books, including Spiritual Story, based on the African American experience from enslavement to freedom to context with the creation of the Negro spiritual. She holds a Doctor of Musical Arts degree from the University of Georgia, a Master's in Church from Scarrett Graduate School, a Master's degree in Music from Georgia State University, and a Bachelor of Arts in Music from Clark College in Atlanta. Please help me welcome Dr. Sharon Willis.
And I'm going to stand here and moderate. So we'll be so proud at the table. And also, I think if we have an audience that's going horizontally, you can tell we have something to look at here and something to look there. Great. Welcome. Good evening. So happy to see you all here. It's an honor, first of all, let me say, an honor to be here with my colleague, Dr. Sharon Willis, who is a colleague from way back. We worked together as faculty and department heads at Morris Brown College. Within 2 decades. And Dr. Brown and I are currently colleagues at Morehouse College. So thank you for being here. They're both outstanding performers, as you heard in the introduction, composers, arrangers, and they are dedicated to sharing the history of Black music as well as presenting and performing. Tonight, the Trey Clegg Singers will perform music that has expressed and fueled our Black freedom struggle for centuries. The selections range from the Black National Anthem to spirituals, gospel music, hymns, traditional hymns, and contemporary selections by composers in the Black sacred music tradition. We know that African American music, both spiritual and secular, has influences that are from Africa at its root. From the rhythms to call and response to musical instruments like banjo and drums. But how was this music forged over time to give rise to spirituals, gospel music, and other forms of Black sacred music or Black church music? Well, that's what we're here to talk about. This discussion is really going on for hours and hours. We only have 30 minutes, less than 30 minutes now, because I've been talking for 2 minutes and the introduction's a while late. So let's get started. First question. Dr. Willis, in your book, Spiritual Story, My Journey, My Story, My Son, published last year, I haven't forgotten it. You say, and I'm quoting, in my story, the African American story, it is the spiritual, the anthem, the ditty, the plantation cries and shouts that express the roots of my soul, the essence of my being and my circumstances. Somewhere between statutory slavery and the mid-1800s and even beyond the end of the Civil War in 1865, my spiritual story was born. Dr. Bush, would you elaborate for us on what you said and what you talk about in your book, especially as it relates to spiritual?
Thank you. I think I'll stand. This is the book that you referred to as Spiritual Story, My Journey, My Story, My Song, where I have lifted up certain spirituals and created a story around them. So in the context of the story, the spiritual belongs. When I was a member of the community chorus under the direction at the time of Dr. Wendell Phillips Whalen, he would travel with us just like when we were grown folk. We would travel to Brunswick and get on the bus and during the summer and have fun. But one thing he said when I asked him about the spiritual, he says, the spiritual is a folk song, a collection of folk songs created by Black people because of their circumstances on a plantation or in slavery. After many, many years, that still stands. What I want to say is the essence of who we are. It's not just a folk song ditty where most folk songs are about characters or short stories. It is about my pain, my sorrow. It is about my journey. It represents everything that I did in life. I'd like to be able to say that out of Africa, there was no such thing as a separation of church and state. That's something that's very European, and that's something that King Henry the Eighth did to get rid of his wives. For the African, everything in life, the hunt, marriage, children, death was sacred. So when we're talking about sacred, it was no separation. So for me, that's spiritual, even though we didn't really call it spiritual. We called them anthems or ditties or songs on the plantation. And they didn't belong to anyone. It was a collective creation on the plantation. It was work songs. Everything that we did seemed to be under the name spiritual. It was a work song. It was a lullaby. It was a shout, a holler. It was ham bone, have you heard? It was all types of rhythms. It was going down to the edge of the field to talk about or to sing until master couldn't hear you anymore. It was all of that was housed under that, but spirituals is so diverse. It's all sacred for us.
Thank you. Thank you. Next question. What is Black sacred music? You talked about spiritual. Dr. Brown, would you please talk a bit about the evolution and emergence of genres that resulted in the emergence of gospel music specifically? You have written, any credible discussion of Black gospel music should be against the backdrop of its precursors, the Negro spirituals, late 19th century camp meeting and revivalist hymns, as well as the concept of lighten out.
Thank you. Let me say that, first of all, some of what I would say would certainly be redundant in the sense of what Dr. Williams said, and it only adds emphasis to the fact that we concur in the kind of direction historically that our visit has taken. This is not a dissertation, but I feel more comfortable sharing with you something from my own writing regarding African American music and the sacred music as it evolves into the multiple genres that are part of who we are as African Americans. Africans who became slaves in America were always a spiritual and religious people. My brother-in-law, Dr. David Daniels III, has done extensive research on Blacks in many parts of Africa, and this is pre-Christendom in Europe as well as pre-Protestantism, long before Europeans came to convert, well, Africans. But even in their own indigenous ritual practices, that sense of spirituality has always been present. In America, singing about sacred songs began immediately with blacks first singing from the outside and in the balconies of institutionalized white churches. And then they moved on to secrets and do their own singing. In the environment that was not an established church environment. It is what was known as the invisible church. Somewhere in the woods, somewhere behind the cabin, somewhere in a brush hog. And they took so many aspects of their own religious practices and merged them with this Western European tradition. And in many cases, that this was forced upon them as slaves by their slave masters. Such as the concept of lighting out. That's really a Western European concept. But blacks adapted to that, and they adapted to it so freely because call and response was not new to them. So lining out didn't align to them. Our charge to be I have, a charge to glorify, and then the body responds, Amen. All right. That concept was not new. But what they did with it, and what they did with those melodies, was so dramatically different from what Western Europeans had done. This was the introduction of what I say in my constant lectures, the Africanism, the idiomatic expressions that black people use, the turns and twists, the blue note singings. That was part of their music. And you know, they didn't, it wasn't only the voice that spoke, call and response also, that sometimes that was an instrument, a drum perhaps. That was the call, and the body would respond. Between the human voice and other kinds of instruments, this indigenous music evolved into the spiritual, which appropriately should be called heritage sacred folk music. Let's just allude to that. Why heritage sacred folk music? We have folk music that don't come from that same place of origin. Meaning that it really has no authorship. They evolved out of our culture. And in evolved, and what happens is that these songs wound up taking on a life of their own based on something else Dr. Willis said, function. It's functional music. It's not for entertainment and diversion or for someone's intellectual opinion. This evolved into the late 19th century camp meeting spirituals that were associated with the revivalist movement of the 19th century. And you have some great people who were the first among our gospel writers. There are at least 5 books that are dedicated to collecting our songs. But the work of Charles Albert Tenney, who first used that word, gospel songs or gospel hymns, came into being between 1901 and 1905. That was a basis in writing for the coming of gospel music. That's part of our heritage. But they brought to that gospel music, and I will end here, some of the very same things that have been part and parcel of the spiritual, but also of our secular music. The beats and rhythms of black guy and so forth. So it comes into the 20th century as a kind of cross-pollination of many different of our music.
Yes, indeed. We're going to talk more about the cross-pollination. In gospel music, when we talk about one gospel song in particular that's going to be performed tonight. But first, Dr. Willis, it's a question for both of you. Starting with Dr. Willis. How is the evolution of Black sacred music and music and drama reflected in the selections in tonight's performances? For example, the Black National Anthem. How is that a sacred song? How is that important?
You say a sacred song and a protest song. That song was created around 1899, actually maybe 1900, by James Weldon Johnson, who was a poet. His brother, 2 years younger than me, set it to music. It was an event for 500 children at Stanton Elementary School. And they were celebrating Lincoln's birthday, but Dr. Booker T. Washington was there as an honored guest. It was not his intention for it to become the national Negro anthem, but after the development of the NAACP in about 1909, with Du Bois and other businessmen, Negro businessmen at that time, And then it seemed like it represented our struggle. You could hear from verse to verse, I love this God of our silent tears. Hope unborn had died. That's very profound. In those 3 verses, which we were required to learn in elementary school, I went to English Avenue, and that was a school where we talked about the Birmingham bomb. English Avenue was bombed in 1960, and I would have been in that classroom, but the guy who set the bomb did not understand the timer, and it went off and blew out the building apart, but I could have been that child sitting there. So it really encompasses our story, our legacy. It's just so profound. Difficult to sing, but yes, and it's now included in our hymnals, which wouldn't have been, 40, 50 years ago, that just wasn't seen important. But now we insist upon it. So the evolution of sacred music, everything evolves because music represents the essence of us. Whatever we're feeling, whether it's the blues, and we take the blues, and there's this term, Dr. Uzi Brown knows this, counterfactual, where you would take a secular text and put it to sacred music. We do that with our Christmas carols. Good Christian men rejoice with the drinking song. So it's not something that's new to experiences. We all have, humanity, that's what we do. So it continues to evolve. We borrow from sacred to religious, and we continue to stir it up because we can't separate it. That's the evolution. It continues. Thank you.
Great description, and thank you for providing an understanding of the references and how the Black national anthem really combines both the sacred and the secular and the traditional protest. Dr. Brown will move on to another discussion of the evolution of our music. We have tonight a couple of pieces by contemporary composers. What genre or mixing of genres do they reflect? Specifically, one thing to talk about Hold Fast to Dreams by Joel Thompson. Joel Thompson is based in Atlanta, and a young man, very young man, about 30. Yeah. And actually also a fellow person. And then the other song is Ella's song by Bernice Johnson, the great Reagan, who now is the fabulous Behind in the Block. So those 2 pieces will be performed tonight. So can you provide some context and understanding for the genre?
I am certainly more familiar with Joel's work because he happens to be a professional musical associate. As a matter of fact, we were going to do one of his works at Morehouse this spring, and unfortunately did not work out the ATO this season, but we were on a panel which I facilitated with Ashley. Wonderful, talented composer, for sure. And I appreciated the fact that in 2016, he decided to use the poems of Langston Hughes, Dream and Harlem. And he juxtaposed them in such a way that represents the challenge or the struggle that we as Black people go through in terms of being conflicted with our dilemmas. I feel the same way about which we shall overcome, but we haven't overcome. If I will overcome someday, or I love to be free and we're not free. But Joel looks at this, he first looks at that poem, which is very, very profound. What happens to a dream? All of these negative things that happen. Does it just hang there in the box? Does it sad? And then, eventually perish or die, but then he looks at the other side of it. The only reason he's been able to get done the deferred dream is because, as they lift their voice and sing, we hold on to hope. And so in this other one, in Hold Fast to Dreams, it's not about what happens to a lost dream. It is what can become as a result of a dream that is realized. Let me just quickly share the words, hold fast the dreams, for if dreams die, life is a broken winged bird that cannot fly. Hold fast the dreams, for when dreams go, life is a barren field frozen with snow. That's very powerful. Our hope is built on nothing less. We have to maintain hope, even in the midst of the shifting tides that are taking place at every cycle. Maybe there were our ancestors who thought Reformation was the new age, but then there became what? There were the post-Reformationists who just absolutely destroyed all of that. And then at the early part of the century, Jim Crow laws and whatnot. So we've gone through this continuous cycle. And he wants to capture that in this juxtaposition of the setting of these 2 points. And I think he does it in a very powerful way in music that is contemporary, in the sense that he represents a lot of ideas that sound in some cases like popular music, and other like the highest form of classical European music. So kudos to him. I am not as familiar with the so I'm going to spend in fact with you tonight for the first time.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. That's Dr. Willis. Tonight, tenor Justin Williams will sing your arrangement of Calvary. Would you talk about what inspired your interpretation of that selection and what you hope the audience would get from it?
Thank you. It is what I call a spiritual art song and arranged in European style setting, but also with handbells to depict the hammering of Jesus' hands and feet to the cross. And it says, Calvary, surely he died on Calvary. And the traditional verse behind that is, makes me troubled to think about dying. And so when I wrote that, I see the Black man's, the Black woman's pathway, and we have suffered so much. We've suffered just like Jesus, but Jesus can suffer and he did nothing. And when we suffer, we complain. Not that I want to be anybody's martyr, but that piece was written to parallel or to remind us of that struggle. And when I thought about putting it in a cantata called Judas Iscariot, who writes about Judas Iscariot? No one does. But I thought, Judas Iscariot, but by the grace of God go I. You say, well, he betrayed his Savior for 30 pieces of silver. And yet, if you are Christian or whatever your faith is, we betray him every day because of things that we say we are. We betray humanity, we betray the homeless, we betray the poor, we disenfranchise Black folk or marginalized people. And that is what that represents to me. It's a parallel of that struggle. And I hope in that presentation, you feel that I can bring the audience into what we feel as a people through that song.
One of the selections this evening is by the father of gospel music. Do you know who that is? The father of gospel music? I think it's Father of gospel music. Thomas Dorsey. And the selection that will be sung this evening is Precious Lord, which was actually one of Martin Luther King Jr.'s favorite songs. Dorsey wrote Precious Lord while living in Chicago at a tragic time in his life. He lost his first wife and his child, his baby. And as you probably know, Dorsey's, and you may know, and now you know, Dorsey's formative years as a child and early teenager was spent here in Atlanta, Georgia. About a mile from here, he used to sell soda pop at a club, a Black vaudeville club called the 81 Theater. And that's where he became introduced to and just enthralled with the blues and jazz. He had all of the greats. They all came through here to perform at the 81 Club. His parents, his father was a minister, and they, of course, were immersed in Black sacred music. but they did not frown upon him enjoying and then later embracing secular music. He met, as I said, great blues singers, and then later he shifted. That was in the 1920s. In the 1930s, during the Great Depression, he shifted to gospel music, what became known as gospel music. Dr. Brown, could you talk about the initial reaction of the Black church to gospel music?
First of all, let me just say in terms of Dorsey's background, Spike, his father actually went to what was named Morehouse College. He went to the Atlanta Baptist Seminary that became Atlanta Baptist College. And he graduated with a degree and was a minister, in spite of the fact that at that time he had to work on the farm and then do itinerant ministry, and sometimes it's on the circuit. You know what that is like. You preach in one church on the first Sunday and third Sunday, another second and fourth. So he was an educated man, born in Village, Georgia. And then Dorsey just was not as inclined in terms of any academic pursuit. So he moved to Atlanta. He started finding other things to become involved in, which was the secular music world. And he got good at that. And at one time, he was playing in all the clubs around Atlanta and in Georgia. Matter of fact, one of his nicknames was Georgia Tom or Barrel House Tom. Because barrel houses were places where people who came to whatever. And they did not have a table. They would turn barrel, bottom side upwards. And that's the way the barrel houses began. With these itinerant places to be. So this was for him a very lucrative business because he eventually wound up being a pianist, a blues singer, Ma Rainey, and he toured extensively with Ma Rainey. It was only in the early 1920s he heard a song that was I Do, Don't You. And he started to think about his life and about what it means to begin to evolve into a more spiritual centered life. And as a result of that, he wrote a piece himself, If I Don't Get There, between 1921 and 1925, which was one of his earliest gospel pieces. And he tried to shop these around, and he was still a blues player in the 20s, but he tried to shop them around in the churches and whatnot, and they called his music devil music. They wanted nothing to do with it because they said it was not of the Lord. Because Dorsey knew the harmonies and the traditions of blues playing, and he simply brought what he knew music. But he said, the people are getting it wrong who don't appreciate this because they're listening to the wrong thing. Power is in the word. If it don't have Jesus in it, and if you don't talk about salvation, then the Lord is not there. But just because this music happens to sound secular does not make it something that is not of a sacred nature. And Dorsey eventually, by the way, some will talk about Tinley, the father of the gospel hymn. Dorsey is called the father of gospel music largely because he, in fact, popularized that genre of music and was the founder of the first major national convention dedicated to gospel music. But there was considerable rejection because of this merging of that secular music style with these sacred songs. And Precious Lord was not Precious Lord, it was Take My Hand, Precious Lord. That title evolved, but it was originally written as Take My Hand, Precious Lord. This song
All over the world.
all over.
And we're running out of time. So we're wrapping it up. I just wanted to note that Dr. Brown's arrangement of We Shall Overcome will be sang a song at the very end of the program. But before we leave, I'd just like each of you to say just a couple words about Trey Clegg and your association with them.
Just a couple. I have known Trey Clegg for so long, I can't remember when I met him, but I know that my second opera of the Hermans, he was at First Congregational, and he was my organist for that. And since then, I've written a lot of organ works, and he has taken those works all the way around the world. And I thank him for that, but he is a tremendous musician. He represents diversity. He's not afraid to do new things and take on new challenges, whether that be gospel music, praise music, the traditional anthem, the arranged spiritual, the solo rendition of that spiritual. And I am proud that he wants to celebrate the African American heritage music the way he does. So I congratulate him on that.
Amen.
What she said. No. Trey is a wonderful musician and a great man. I've had the pleasure of working with him for many years. He's a great organist, pianist. He understands the voice extremely well, and his chorus has been in existence for about 10 years now, and they've continuously grown. And I'm particularly proud of the fact that he has programmed We Shall Overcome. I mentioned earlier that element of both hope and the fact that we're still on the journey. You're going to hear at the beginning when he does this piece some music that doesn't sound like We Shall Overcome, and that's because it's not. It starts with a spiritual melody. I ain't got weary yet. I've been on this journey a mighty long time and I ain't got weary yet. That's because we haven't overcome. We shall overcome. And I appreciate so much that he's programmed it, and I know that they will do an exquisite job with all of this music tonight. Kudos to him and to the Trey Clegg Singers, and thank you.
Could we get one more big round of applause for the moderators? I don't know if I need to say more about the Trey Clegg Singers, other than they were the first multicultural group in the Southeast. And I think that really speaks to Trey's energy, which if you look at your program, the American organist described his artistic abilities as demonstrating precision and a superabundance of energy. It was obvious this young man would go very far. And a superabundance of energy is perhaps the most apt description of Trey Clegg in my short time of knowing him that I can think of. So please welcome to the risers, the Trey Clegg Singers.
It is such an honor for us to be here this evening with you in this hallowed space. I love this city, and I love this space, and I love my friends and colleagues, new friends, those who I call family. This city and many of my friends in this room have encouraged us as we try to sort of bring people together through music. If you look at the group, my goal has been for this chorus to look and sound like the diversity of it. Because we live in a very rich and diverse city, you know. One of my dearest friends in the world is Mr. Joel Thompson, who's a graduate student at Yale University in music theory and composition. He's already quite an accomplished composer. Many major symphony orchestras have already performed his music at his tender age of 35. He has said, Dr. Brown already talked about it tonight, he said the famous Langston Hughes text about a dream. Listen to these words again. What happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry out like a raisin in the sun? Or fester like a sore and run? Does it stink like rotten meat? Or crust and sugar over like syrup sweet? Maybe it just sags like a heavy load. Or does it explode? Hold fast to dreams. For when dreams die, life is a broken winged bird that cannot fly. Hold fast to dreams, for when dreams go, life is a barren field frozen with snow. Hold fast to dreams, for when dreams die, life is a broken winged bird that cannot fly. Life is a barren field when dreams go, frozen with snow. What happens to a dream deferred? Hold fast to your dreams. Hold fast to all dreams. Hold fast to whatever your dream is. Because if you mess around, some of us might be around to help you achieve. Please welcome the audition, the super audition Trey Clegg Singers group, which is comprised predominantly of professional singers, singing this piece by my dear friend, Joel Thompson, Hold Fast to Dreams. Willis had mentioned earlier that I was Gordon's the first congregational church downtown, the first time straight out of graduate school, and then got brought back recently. Well, when I was there the first time, straight out of school back in the early 2000s, Dr. John Adam Cole, who was the recent former president of Spelling, had become at that point to be the president of Bennett College in Greensboro, and she joined our church. And who knew that Dr. Cole's mom had been a church organist? So she loved organ music. She came to all my organ concerts and what have you, and we became dear friends. Well, she said, Trey, have you ever heard Sweet Honey in the Rock? And I was like, oh, Dr. Cole. I mean, like, my parents played Sweet Honey in the Rock records my whole life, but I've never heard them live. She said, baby, you got to lose your mind. And so she invited my late husband, who passed a few years ago, to come with me up to Bennett to hear the concert. And I got to meet Dr. Bernice Johnson-Reagan, and I'm not passed out. I mean, she's just a legend, you know. So one of their best known songs is Ella's song, All About Freedom. None of us are free until we're all free. Amen. That's what this song is about. Please welcome my dear friend, Alto 2 section leader and South DeKalb County middle school chorus teacher. There's a crowns in heaven earned for her for teaching middle school. Y'all, I want you to meet my dear friend, graduate of Fisk University and major concert pianist, Mrs. Portia Schuler-Paul. Please stand. And my dear friend of many years on percussion, playing conga drums on Dr. Reagan's piece, Miss Edith Cookie Pete. Graduate of the music department of the #1 women's college in the world, Spelman College.
sincerely. Struggling myself don't mean a whole lot. I've come to realize that teaching others to stand up and fight is the only way I struggle to survive. We who believe in freedom and freedom. We who believe in freedom and freedom. I'm the one who speaks in a voice, and I'm just be heard. Sometimes I can be quiet in this soul. I vow to go back words. We who believe in freedom and freedom. We who believe in freedom and freedom.
So when I was at First Congregation as a kid, that first time, I kept hearing about this incredible composer, singer, pianist, writer, brilliant woman, whose husband then was a prominent tenor in town. They were like, you have to meet her. And I'm like, well, Stuart, of course, who is she? Well, she's the chair of the music department at Morris Brown College. Great. Her name is Dr. Sharon J. Willis. And I said, oh, great, this is wonderful. I was not ready. She had just written an opera based on the Herndons. And Mr. Alonzo Herndon, who started the Atlanta Life Company, was a member of First Congregation of my church. Well, this was in the days before the church was renovated. And the Herndons were married in 1908, and the sanctuary pretty much looked the same in 2000 as it did in 1908. So Dr. Willis hired me to do orders for the wedding and funeral scenes for the Herndon Opera. And I swear to God, it was like taking time travel. And you played literally, you played for that wedding and funeral because you could feel the emotion, you know. So then she started writing organ pieces for me that I took to Europe and what have you. I love this one. She is one of the most profoundly gifted, genius human beings I've ever been privileged to know. She composed, as she has already described to you, her opera Judas Iscariot, in which she uses the spiritual power. One of her former students at Morris Brown, Mr. Brandon Owens, is going to play clarinet on this piece. And one of my tutors, Mr. Justin Cornelius, who is a staff singer of mine at First Congregational, and also sings with me in the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra chorus together, where we're colleagues, are going to perform this piece along with two Handel readers. Please welcome this ensemble performing Calvary from Judas Iscariot by the great Dr. Sharon J. Willis, who's in the audience today. Y'all, I apologize. We've had some sheet music go missing here. Thank you so much.
Socialist.
Meet my brother from the great Morehouse College Music Department and formerly of the Morehouse College Quick Club, and a former student of the great tenor, Mr. Timothy Miller, Mr. Joshua Trout.
So when you grow up in high school doing the all-state chorus and singing everything in high school chorus, you sing these things by famous composers, never knowing or dreaming that you get to meet them, right? I mean, it's a dream. So, again, when I went to First Congregational, and then after I got hard on at Spelman, I began to understand that one of the composers that I grew up admiring was right there on the faculty of Morehouse College, Dr. U.Z. Brown Jr., and I about had a mortal heart attack. And so when I got to meet Dr. Brown, he and I became such dear friends. And oh my gosh, I've learned so much from him just about conversation and watching his work, studying his music thoroughly. And he wrote a beautiful collection of solo spirituals that he titled Over Eve many years ago. And one of those in that collection, he wrote for the great soprano, Mrs. Laura English Robinson, a Spelman graduate who, after going to Cincinnati Conservatory for a master's, returned to Spelman to teach many years. And then she's the one that brought me to Spelman in 2006. And I've been serving as her accompanist in many avenues since then. I've invited her tonight to sing Dr. Brown's solo arrangement of the great spiritual Ain't It That Good News. Please welcome an Atlanta legend, Mrs. Laura English Robinson.
One of the great joys of my life was working with amazing singers. When I was at St. Paul's Episcopal Church on Big Road, working for the now current Bishop Robert Wright at the first African American bishop of the Episcopal Church in Buckhead, we worked together for, oh my goodness, 15 years. And I got a new choir member, and she came to me and she said, "I'd like to audition for your church choir." I said, "Just come on." But I would like to be singing. I said, "What's your background?" She goes, "Well, I went to LaGuardia High School in New York. It used to be the New York School for Performing Arts." And she goes, "Have you ever heard of the TV show or the movie Fame?" I was like, "Girl, come on, let's do it." Welcome, Miss Princess Bristol Singing.
And
We conclude tonight's program with the anthem of the Civil Rights Movement, arranged by my dear friend and one of my many mentors, the great Dr. B.C. Brown.